In this video, I'm going to explain how to calculate the debt cost of capital. If you remember from my earlier videos, we have made a very simplified assumption that we have only two sources of capital, debt and equity. So if you have only two sources of capital, how do you calculate the average cost of these two capital, which is called the weighted average cost of capital? And this is simply the weighted average of these two sources of capital, right? The first part includes the cost of debt capital. That is why it is very important to calculate the cost of debt capital. Without cost of debt capital, you cannot calculate WACC, or the composite cost of capital. So this is what we are going to do in this video. Just to give you the overview or remind you what we have been doing, I have put this slide which lists basically what are the different steps we follow in order to calculate the weighted average cost of capital. And in step 2, you need to calculate the cost of debt, and this is what we are doing in this video. So let's see how we can calculate. So there are different methods people follow, and for this class I have chosen just two methods to calculate the cost of debt. Method number 1, we can always use the historical cost of debt as a representative cost for the future. So what does this method say us? This method tells us that we can use the historical cost of debt capital as a proxy for future cost of debt capital. And how do you calculate the historical cost of debt capital? And this is what we say here, implied cost of capital. So the simple idea is you look at how much the debt the company has and how much interest it is paying, and you just find the ratios of this interest paid over the debt amount the company holds. And by doing this, we can calculate how much interest the company is paying on its debt, and we can use that as a proxy for future debt cost of capital. So just to make it more formal, I have given you the formula here. How do you calculate the historical cost of debt capital? Then you look at the average net interest paid over this year and the previous year, and you calculate average net debt over this year and previous year. And once you find these two values, you can simply find the ratios of these two, and that tells us how much interest the company is paying in the past for its debt. And we can use this as a proxy for the future debt cost of capital. And I want to emphasize here, in order to calculate this implied cost of debt, two important concepts here: how to get net interest paid and how to get net financial debt. Net interest paid is simpler. It's interest paid minus interest earned, but the net financial debt is little complex. Please pay attention here how you calculate, and I have given you the formula here. So how do you calculate that? Total financial debt, which includes the short-term debt, the current portion of the long-term debt, and long-term debt, minus the cash and short-term investment. Remember, this is how you calculate net financial debt. Once you calculate the net financial debt for this year and the previous year, and net interest paid for this year and previous year, you can put these values into that equation, and then you can find the implied cost of debt. For example, I have a artificial company here, XYZ, and it has information from balance sheet for the last 2 years, and I have a cash and cash equivalent, I have short-term investment, I have short-term and current portion of the long-term debt, and I have long-term debt. How do you calculate implied cost of debt? Remember, we need to get net debt first. How do you calculate net debt? Remember the formula, right? find the sum of this cash and cash equivalent and short-term investment. This gives us the total liquid asset, and if you sum short-term debt and current portion of long-term debt plus the long-term debt, that gives us the total debt. So if you subtract the total liquid asset from the total debt, we get the net debt. That's why I have said here total liquid asset here. So total debt minus total liquid asset gives us the net debt. As far as the interest paid is concerned, I have given you here the net interest paid. So once you know net interest paid and net debt, you can find the ratio of these two and calculate the implied cost of debt. Keep in mind here how I have calculated this. You just don't use this year's debt and this year's interest paid. Sometimes that skews your results. It's always safer to use 2 years average. So sometimes if there's outlier years, then you don't screw up with the numbers that you get. This is method number 1. Method number 2, here is the situation. You have a XYZ Inc., right, and plans a bond issue for the near future and wants to estimate its current cost of debt capital. And the firm's chief financial officer has determined that a 20-year bond, maturity bond with a 1,000 face value, 6.5% coupon be sold to investors for net proceed of 908.32. In this case, what is the cost of debt financing to this firm? Which means XYZ is planning to raise capital issuing bond, and that bond is 20 years bond, and the face value of that bond is 1,000, which means when the bond matures, the company will pay the bondholder 1,000 back. And 6.5% is the coupon rate, which means 6.5% of 1,000, they are going to make a payment every year to the bondholder, and that is usually called the coupon payment. So if they agree on these terms and condition, then now they can sell the bond for the price of 908.32. So remember here, the price is 908.32, and they keep on making coupon payment 6.5% for the next 20 years, and at the end of 20 years they are going to pay the $1,000 back to the bondholder. In that case, what is the cost of this bond? Again, we're going to use Excel's IRR function, and that way the problem becomes very easy. That's why here the face value is 1,000, which means the company will pay the debt holder or the bondholder 1,000 at the end of the maturity period, and the current price is 908.32. Coupon rate is 6.5%. And how you calculate coupon payment, meaning how much coupon or the interest the company will be paying each year. So 6.5% of the face value, that's why you multiply that, and this is $65, and the bond maturity period is 20. And how do you calculate IRR? You list all the period here, 20 years bond, that's why you have a 20-year period, and you have all your cash flow. Remember, the first cash flow is negative because you have to pay that much to the firm, right? That's why it's negative. And if you hold that bond for the next 20 years, you're gonna get all the coupon payment at the end. You not only get the coupon payment, but also the principal, like 1,000 face value. So if you do that, what is the IRR then? IRR is simply, look at the formula here, IRR and all the values, right? So you can follow this technique and calculate IRR. What is this IRR? Which is 7.39%. What is this? That means the cost for this firm to issue this bond is 7.39%. So if the firm is issuing, as I said earlier, 10 different kinds of bonds, then you have to go and calculate the cost of each kind of bond. And once you know the cost of each of these 10 kind of bond, and then now you can find the average of all these 10 bonds, right? And that average of these 10 bonds can be used as a proxy for the debt cost of capital.